Hello and welcome to The Point World Affairs. I'm your host, Daniel Chen. On our program, we delve a little deeper into some of the stories making headlines around the globe. As usual, we have Professor Song Se-ryun, professor of law at Kyung University, joining us in the studio.
Good to be here.
Good to have you with us as always. Well, I'm sure you have some exciting keywords prepared for us, so let's get to the point.
Right, especially this week, I was excited about these issues because they are law-related and some of the things that I'm concerned about. So I picked 3 keywords: Asia's first, pro-life, and three-peat.
Unrelated to basketball, unfortunately.
Right.
Let's start with the first word that you have chosen. Let's take a look.
Taiwan became the first Asian nation to recognize the rights of same-sex couples as its parliament voted to legalize gay marriage. Around 40,000 gay rights supporters celebrated outside the parliament building in Taipei as the ruling was announced. Pro-gay marriage groups in the country have been calling for same-sex marriage to be allowed since the 1990s. Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen, an ardent supporter of the law since coming into power, called the ruling, quote, a big step towards the true meaning of equality.
今天是台湾值得骄傲的一天啊！我们让世界看到我们这块土地的良善、包容的价值。
Following the approval of the monumental law, same-sex couples in Taiwan reportedly have planned mass wedding registration. Married same-sex couples will be given full legal marriage rights in areas including child custody, taxes, and insurance.
What's interesting is that before it was passed, the bill legalizing same-sex marriage was approved in Parliament, there was a huge uproar from the public. Majority of them, a large proportion of Taiwanese society, were very much against this move.
Right, 67% in the referendum against this move. But this is a very interesting issue, not only legally, but politically, because 2 years ago, a constitutional court in Taiwan said that the marriage defined as a union between men and women is unconstitutional. That's why they had to pass a law, and hence became a country that first allowed the gay marriage. So is it judicial activism? Is constitutional court not elected appropriate persons to decide this important issue? This is a very interesting issue, just like in the U.S., the civil rights movement was led by the Supreme Court in the 60s and 70s. So in that sense, very legal, but also political. So the public's against it, but legally, they pushed it through.
Interestingly, in Korea, it's a rather sensitive subject when it comes to political battles or presidential elections. Candidates tend to be careful about approaching the subject. They can't show full support for the, I guess, gender minority here in Korea.
Right. So this is also a kind of a test case where the rest of Asia, would they follow that trend, or is it going to be something of a repercussion because of the conservative move might rally against a different direction?
Right. Regardless, I would judge the success of this progression by the response of those who are directly affected by the changes, with those parading and putting up rallies to support the cause, crying tears of joy. I think that speaks volumes about what this change was all about.
Right. This is a good news for them.
Right. Let's move on to our next keyword now.
Anti-abortion legislation has been approved in several states across the United States. In Missouri, lawmakers have passed a bill that will ban abortions at 8 weeks of pregnancy. It also criminalizes abortion even in case of rape.
That right yet to live. And that's what we should be all doing, and that's what we're dedicated to do. That's why it's important for this legislation to get done.
Missouri joins Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, and Alabama as the states to have banned abortions. Alabama, in particular, has voted to put the most aggressive restrictions in place by criminalizing the act, even for victims of rape or incest. It also classified abortion as a Class A felony, punishable by up to 99 years in prison for doctors who provide abortion. The passage of anti-abortion laws is stoking a fierce debate across the country.
If you did have exceptions for rape and incest, then the logical question would be, well, does that make it not a human being? And of course, there would be a logical flaw in that legal argument. Therefore, we can't have any exceptions.
I'm a social worker, and I've spent a lot of my career advocating for victims of sexual assault, rape, and incest, and the trauma that this is doing to the women that I've worked with and the families of this state.
Meanwhile, President Donald Trump took to Twitter saying that he is, quote, strongly pro-life with the 3 exceptions, which are rape, incest, and protecting the life of the mother.
In Korea, we recently pushed to make abortion legal. It's the reverse in some states in the United States. What's most disturbing is in Alabama, where they say the only exceptional case would be when the woman's life is in danger. So whether it's incest or rape, they need to carry the child, which is quite baffling. Even President Donald Trump was saying he does not support such a move of not having such exceptions.
Right, especially in light of the existing law, which is set by the Roe versus Wade in 1973. The women in the United States supposedly have a right to have an abortion until the 2nd trimester. At this point, 24th week. A lot of states are taking a stance against it, and they've used a lot of different tactics, making it really hard to set up abortion clinics or having waiting periods, and those happened in mostly red state. I think what's happening now is predictably unconstitutional, so those laws will be struck down. But because of the new members of the Supreme Court being conservative, they're trying to make a legal case so that they're hoping that they will reach the Supreme Court at someday. And because of the kind of conservative shift, probably they think that they have a chance to overturn the Roe versus Wade.
Apparently more than 20 who voted in favor of the abortion ban were white male Republicans. So those numbers speak somewhat volumes about this progress. And
Right.
it's quite disturbing to know the fact that if this becomes law, a doctor would go to jail longer than the rapist.
Right. So in that sense, a lot of things do not make sense. And this is a situation where President Trump knows that the Supreme Court will not overturn this and get behind these states. And this is useful because he can say anything about his stance, pro-life stance, until the election next year. So I think that you have to look at it from a presidential campaign point of view, taking advantage of the kind of quagmire situation where he can say something strongly without getting those things, the present state of being overturned to raise outrage on the other side. So this is a good situation from a campaign standpoint.
Right, already campaigning. It feels like just yesterday they were done with that.
Right.
Let's move on to the final word that you have prepared for today.
Repeat.
The Liberal National Coalition secured an upset victory over the Labour Party in Australia's federal elections. It was a shocking win for the ruling Conservatives as the result came out completely the other way around from what virtually all opinion and exit polls had predicted for years. Following his 6 years in office since 2013, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison will continue his 3rd term in office for the next 3 years.
I have always believed in miracles. And it's those Australians that we have been working for the last 5.5 years since we came to government under Tony Abbott's leadership back in 2013.
Labour Party leader Bill Shorten conceded defeat and congratulated Morrison for his win.
I wish Scott Morrison good fortune and good courage in the service of our great nation. The national interest required no less.
The opposition Labour Party campaigned in big cities on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, which was believed to be the headline issue in the election. However, experts believe the party has lost its ground on economic issues.
Bill Shorten comes up short, and Morrison pulls a Scott once again. Many people are saying
Right.
this is an accidental prime minister, but 3 times in a row seems far from coincidence.
And this is a large upset because the polls and the news reports seem to indicate that this time around the power will be shifted.
Right. Apparently, according to some reports, the opinion polls, 50 of them showed them losing.
The current
Coalition.
coalition is about 9 months old in terms of having a scandal and the kind of brouhaha last year, getting then Prime Minister booted out. So incumbent at this point, Scott Morrison, is about 9 months old. So in that sense, he doesn't have the huge advantage of having a seat for a while. And this campaign was billed as a competition between the climate change and economy. And the climate change situation in Australia, as you know, is pretty dire, pretty long and extreme drought, and also coral reef situation. So a lot of people predicted that this time around, the young people will rally around and give the Labour Party a win. But it seems like, looking back, the analysis seems to indicate that especially the Queensland region, where the coal industry is pretty strong, kind of had the doubt about the cost of containing the climate change and what that will do to Australian economy.
The anti-Abbott groups formed a coalition. How much of this success would you contribute to the failure of Tony Abbott?
I think he has to take the huge responsibility at this point because the public mood was on his side. It's a matter of kind of harnessing those public sentiment. But
those T-shirts were selling like hotcakes.
Right. I think he either overlooked the silent majority in the economy session, or he didn't really convincingly provide the public that we can do something about it on the mounting problems. But I guess he fell short.
Right. Clearly, the climate change debate was a hard sell in rural mining communities. It's a loud victory for the silent Aussies.
Right.
Thank you so much for these amazing keywords and the stories you've prepared for us today, Professor. We appreciate it.
My pleasure, always.
The main topic of the point is about the United States' new immigration system. President Donald Trump announced his plan to reform the current family-based immigration policy into a system that favors younger, better educated, and skilled workers. He called the current immigration system meaningless and also criticized it for standing against American values.
Random selection is contrary to American values and blocks out many qualified potential immigrants from around the world who have much to contribute. Under the senseless rules of the current system, we're not able to give preference to a doctor, a researcher, a student who graduated #1 in his class from the finest colleges in the world.
The proposal is a different take from how the current immigration policy is set up. The reform plan would adopt a point system based on each applicant's professional skills, education, age, and English proficiency.
Only 12% of legal immigrants are selected based on skill or based on merit. In countries like Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, and others, that number is closer to 60 and even 70 and 75% in some cases.
However, politicians and the press are showing little interest in adopting Trump's new immigration agenda. Even the Republicans are voicing concerns over the plan, and with Democrats holding the majority in the House, it seems highly unlikely they'll cooperate.
As we have seen from the video, our main discussion topic is President Donald Trump's new immigration plan. Like you mentioned before, this is time for him to aggressively campaign for a next run at the Oval Office. And he initially campaigned about family-based, changing the family-based immigration policy. How do you perceive the new changes being accepted?
Well, this is a huge issue, and I think there's an ideological divide between the Republican and Democrats as well. what Donald Trump was saying is true. The current system is a family-based. This statistic is a few years old, but about 60% of the new immigrants are family-based immigration, and skill-based, job-based is only about 14%. So he is saying the right things about the proportions, but if you're thinking about discarding this system that they had, the family-based system, probably there's going to be uproar, predictably, in the Democratic faction of it, but Republicans on the right side probably will be welcoming this move.
Right. We'll be turning to you, Professor Song, for more of your take on this matter. But for now, it's time to connect with an expert via Skype to learn how locals feel about this particular plan. Julia Gillard, Senior Policy Analyst at the Migration Policy Institute, is with us right now. Hello there.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for making time for us. Many predict that Trump's new immigration plan is not likely to pass its legislative process. Are the American public and politicians responding to this particular issue?
There has been a lot of opposition to the bill from Democrats in Congress. They say this bill is, cutting family immigration, it's increasing border enforcement and building Trump's wall, and it doesn't offer any relief for the dreamers. Those are undocumented immigrants who arrived to the U.S. as children. It doesn't offer relief to the broader 11 million unauthorized immigrants in the United States. So they think this is an incomplete proposal that doesn't contain some of the things they wish for. So the proposal to move from a primarily family-based system that we have for immigration in the U.S. to a primarily skills-based system would be a really vast change for our country, and I think it's a very contentious one. At the same time, there probably is some appetite in our country for moving a bit from family-based to skills-based, but such a drastic shift would cause a lot of opposition. The other thing I think about this bill is it's really trying to increase the skill level of immigrants coming to the United States and move to a very high-skilled system. But that would be a really drastic change for our economy, because right now we rely on a lot of immigrant workers to fill lower-skilled jobs and middle-skilled jobs like hospitality jobs and farm work and construction and nursing and childcare and all types of things. So if we have a purely high-skilled system, that would cause a really big economic shift for us.
I see. Well, thank you so much for your time and expertise. We appreciate it. Now, Professor, as she just mentioned, the DACA or the Dreamers program, how it will be changed or assimilated, or perhaps it will be ignored altogether, that will be a big issue there in the United States.
Right. Because of that, this bill is termed as something that is dead on arrival. When it gets to the Congress, the House of Representatives is controlled by the Democrat, and it lacks a key provisions that can make some concessions with the other side. So I don't think anybody at this point has any prospect that this bill will pass. I think it's just like the abortion issue. This is a campaign issue that the Donald Trump is very comfortable about saying some strong things to move his base. And this is a very interesting situation that the United States has. Because the immigration is a federal issue, the Congress has to pass a bill that comprehensively addresses this issue. But because of its contention, because of the DACA bill and all those, the Congress has not moved for a very long time. That's why the immigration policies under Obama has to be done by the executive order of the president and under the Trump as well. So Trump is sitting pretty, saying that, well, the federal government will not do anything. I'm the only one who's doing something about it that placates and palatable to our voters.
What are some watchers, analysts, or experts saying about the possibility of this change doing something to address the illegal immigration issue?
Well, that issue is very complicated because for a long time Mexico was an issue. But as the Mexican economy kind of improved, that lessened. Mexican illegal immigration is not as much of a problem before. But those countries, triangle regions in the Central America, they're having their civil wars, they're having economic downturns, they're having drug problems, and those people are moving over. So it's not just the border wall or the immigration policy of the United States, it's the economy of the region and the policies that affects everybody there. So I think that the policies that the United States does has to take into account how it affects the economy of theirs, how it affects the security of those regions, without thinking about that comprehensive coverage, probably this issue will go on and be contentious between the ideological lines.
Right. We sincerely hope that this is not just about Trump wanting some bragging rights about having done something about a problem instead of complaining about it, and that more thought is put into making these big changes.
Exactly.
Well, it's time for us to spin the globe for some interesting happenings in various corners of our world. First, let's fly over to Japan.
If you're tired of spending time at cafes that only have dogs or cats, how about sipping a cup of joe surrounded by piglets? There's a new place in Tokyo. Customers can get a big greeting from the little hammies as they enter the cafe. While the average pigs weigh between 100 and 300 kilograms, these micro pigs are considered well-fed when they weigh up to 5 kilograms. With the shop getting more spotlight, hopefully it will provide the piglets with a comfy home for as long as it can.
Next, we head to the United States.
What could possibly be the biggest gift for college graduates? A billionaire in Atlanta might have the answer to that question as he handed out the ultimate graduation gift for graduating seniors. Vista Equity Partners founder Robert F. Smith announced he would pay off the entire graduating class's student debt during a commencement speech at Morehouse College.
And my family is making a grant to eliminate their student loans. We are enough to ensure we have all the opportunities of the American dream. And we will show it to each other through our actions and through our words and through our deeds. And may God always hold you in the cradle of her hands. Congratulations.
Smith is known as the wealthiest African American with a net worth of $5 billion, ahead of Oprah Winfrey. Smith will be paying off the student loans for a total of 396 students, which accumulate to roughly $40 million.
Next, we fly over to the UK.
A flashy Formula A race car is carefully dropped onto a plain driveway in England. The car, which cost a couple $1 million, has met its new 5-year-old owner. Everyone calls him Harry. He has Ewing sarcoma, a rare form of bone cancer, and was diagnosed as terminally ill. Harry had wished his favorite racer, Lewis Hamilton, luck in the race in Barcelona through a video clip, and Hamilton, after winning the Spanish title, returned the favor by delivering one of his race cars along with the trophy. Hamilton and his racing team are extending their efforts to help the youngster by raising funds for research into Ewing sarcoma.
Our last stop, Italy.
An invisible man, a chameleon, and a master of camouflage art.
Ninja sport.
Chinese performance artist Liu Bolin goes by several nicknames. Bolin is known for his talent soaking himself from head to toe with paint and naturally assimilating into all kinds of backgrounds, ranging from a building brick wall to a supermarket stand. During the Milan exhibition, he showcased his new artworks created at some of the most famous cities in Italy. He surely is an artist using his own body to prove that art and creativity have no limits.
Wow, the commencement speech, the ceremony, must have been an unforgettable one. There are so many interesting speeches on YouTube, but nothing hits home or hit the heart or the financial vacant area as this particular billionaire offering to cover all the students' loans.
I think this is a commendable thing that he did, and I hope that this becomes somewhat of a movement. I think that this will make the lives of these young people very profoundly Also close the gap between the generational divide that people have. If you have succeeded, then give it back, and give it back to the students who want to do some good things, maybe reciprocate, and also pay it forward to other students.
The next story that was quite interesting, Lewis Hamilton handed a gift to a little boy fighting a very difficult fight. Most kids would kill for a race car bed. This boy got the real thing.
Right. The best aspect of sports, I think, is the human drama it creates. And this is a very heartwarming story because what Lewis Hamilton did, I think he made the news, but also made other lives happy, and also I think he elevated the sport.
Well, Professor Song, it's time for us to say goodbye again. We appreciate you coming in and making our program complete.
My pleasure every time. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's all the stories we have brought with us today. For more, do tune in again at same time next week for a brand new episode of The Point World Affairs. Thank you so much for watching.